8BitDo has a great track record of delivering reliably solid controllers that aren't necessarily mind-blowing, but something easy to keep coming back to, and even easier to recommend. Part of this comes from their willingness to create control options for a variety of different systems at a variety of different price points. Their N30 Pro controller eternally lives in my backpack due to its compactness, while their mod kit fuels my N64 gameplay, and their SN30 is the main way I play on my Super NT. They're all great, versatile options, and my experiences with each of them made me excited when 8BitDo announced they were releasing a low-cost Pro Controller alternative for Switch. At $30, their colorful Ultimate C controller is less than half the price of Nintendo's own offering. That could easily make the Ultimate C a fantastic deal, but it could also make it an exercise in cutting corners to hit a price point. Let's discuss which one's actually the case here. Taking a look at the controller's design, it has a Switch layout styled with a few different influences. The sticks look and feel similarly to a standard Pro controller. As on the Pro controller, these are Alp sticks. They're nothing fancy, but feel good under thumb, with just the right amount of resistance to them. The action buttons take cues from Xbox controllers with their convex shape, although 8BitDo's implementation has a more solid thud in its actuation and slightly lighter touch overall, which I quite like. Then, up top, the shoulders and digital triggers are styled similarly to a DualSense controller. I'm a fan of the shape in general, but have some mixed feelings about the actual execution. The slight flare on the triggers feel comfortable to rest my fingers on and satisfyingly tactile to pull back. Unfortunately, the shoulder buttons are stiff and clacky. Each time I press them, I half expect that they've become stuck. They're usable, but not as enjoyable as other controllers I have on hand. Finally, in the biggest piece of 8BitDo DNA on this controller is their iconic D-pad. A ton of folks swear by this D-pad style. It's firm, yet springy, reliable with a decent amount of travel. There's obviously quality to the design, even if I'm not the biggest fan of it overall over other clickier options on the market, purely for personal preference. The only thing that trips me up about this controller specifically is that 8BitDo recessed the D-pad slightly. Aesthetically, it looks nice, but in practice, it means my thumb is pressing against the shell of the controller whenever I press the D-pad from certain angles. It just doesn't feel great. Luckily, while playing a bit of Shovel Knight Dig and a few SNES games, I found my thumb to rest more naturally toward the center of the D-pad and largely avoid that awkwardness. So while I would have liked it to not be recessed so much, it might not be a huge issue for D-pad reliant games, especially if you have smaller hands than me. Of course, all this should be more or less familiar to anyone familiar with 8BitDo's original Ultimate controller. The Ultimate C uses the exact same design, just omitting grip buttons, turbo, app support, and analog triggers, while also adding a really nice pastel color scheme, which has been refreshing among my various gray and black controllers. The only unfortunate thing about reusing that design to such an extent is how they designed the inner angles of this controller. With the more expensive Ultimate controller, this would be where it interacted with its charging dock. But the Ultimate C doesn't have that functionality. Yet it still has the very same sharp angle that would be needed to make clean contact with its charging pins. Whenever my fingers graze those inner corners, it doesn't feel great, and I wonder why they didn't round it off a little bit more. During actual gameplay, it's usually not too much of a distraction, but having such sharp design on a controller feels like an odd choice. The actual act of playing games with this controller is quite good though. It's one of those controllers that kinda gets out of its own way, doesn't leave a strong impression, but is easy to reach for between it and a Pro controller. The grips are nicely textured and feel comfortable to play with for hours on end. Motion works great, and its rumble actually feels about the same as a standard Pro controller. One of the first third-party controllers I've experienced doing it to that extent. Overall, it's a generally solid controller for most games. However, there are a couple downsides that bother me, but hey, might not bother you. First is the weight. At 207 grams, it's about 20% lighter than a Pro controller. For a child or someone with much smaller hands, I could see that being a bonus. For me, a much larger person, that drop in weight led the Ultimate C to feel a tad less substantial in my hands. In general, it doesn't feel like I'm holding much of anything when I'm gripping the controller. The second issue is a lack of amiibo support. Like most third-party controllers, it's missing here. At only $30, I'm almost willing to give it a pass, but it is still a hassle to keep another controller on hand if I ever want to use my amiibo collection. Taking all this together, the Ultimate C is a very solid controller option for folks on a budget. It's very hard to find a controller that plays and feels quite this solid for $30 without rolling the dice on an unfamiliar brand on Amazon. Not to mention, the 3 available colorways are a really nice, tasteful touch. For anyone with a larger budget though, I have a feeling the Ultimate C would make for a great Player 2 controller that won't degrade the other player's overall experience. For those looking for a primary controller, even if you wouldn't necessarily be disappointed by the Ultimate C, Nintendo's Pro controller still feels like a better, albeit more expensive, option by comparison. However, if you're already looking for something in the $70 price range, I might also recommend checking out 8BitDo's Pro 2 controller, which doesn't have the weird recessed D-pad, but does have a slew of other nifty features. Or, if that's not your style, check out my current favorite Switch controller, the Big One Rainbow 2 Pro, which takes a more Xbox-like approach to a Switch controller, but is extremely versatile in its design and feature set. Overall, the Ultimate C is still a very nice controller for its price that probably won't make anyone disappointed to use it. There are definitely better options out there, but once again, it seems that 8BitDo created a controller that's easy to keep coming back to and even easier to recommend. Those are my thoughts though. I'd love to know yours. Have you already picked up an Ultimate C and have thoughts of your own you'd like to share? Or are you in the market for a cheap controller and have additional questions you'd like to ask about the Ultimate C? Let me know down in the comments. As always, if you found this video helpful or informative, go ahead and click that like button to let me know, and then get subscribed for more controller-related videos in the future. I've done a ton of controller reviews in this past year, including the last one on the Rainbow 2 Pro. I'll have a link to a playlist containing all those reviews on the screen in case you're looking for more controller videos to check out. That's going to be all for this video though. Thanks y'all for watching here until the end, and until next time, catch you later.